Welcome to an Askewed View. I'm Travis Hayward here again, as always, with the great Jordan Brandon. And today we're going to be tickling your ear pussies just a little bit with one of his most underrated, I think anyway, underrated films, Zack and Miri Make a Porno.
Yeah, I mean, underrated is a really good word for this film. I mean, surprisingly, no one talks about it anymore, which is amazing considering how, top-notch the comedy is.
Exactly, and it's really, it's also crazy considering, the amount of talent and caliber that everyone has in this movie. I mean, it's got an all-star cast with a lot of the Apatow crew, like Seth Rogen and Craig Robinson, and just, all of these, and Elizabeth Banks, of course, and all of these just really great names that just carry the whole movie, and not just the comedic ways, but the emotional ways as well. It's crazy how, it's got all of this talent behind it, all of these amazing aspects that bring it all together. And it really, a lot of people feel like it looks and feels like a Judd Apatow movie, but I kind of disagree. I mean, yeah, based on the cast members in it, but I mean, in terms of the script and the story and how that story is surfaced, it's totally 100% Kevin Smith.
It's almost a perfect balance, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because, yes, there's a lot of Apatow elements in there. And there are moments where, Rogen and Banks on screen, it feels like an Apatow film. But, I mean, you've got, Jeff Anderson in there, you got Jason Mewes, you have all these, regulars in there that, it's very much a Kevin Smith film. It feels like a Kevin Smith film. And there are very few partnerings where I don't think it would have worked as well. We've seen things in the past where, there are two directors or two creators will try and merge their vision, and it just doesn't work. But, I mean, Apatow and Smith just merge perfectly.
Oh, well, 100%. And, I mean, what's funny is, this movie, Apatow himself wasn't actually involved in this flick. It was just, Kevin just kind of, Kevin, initially how this all came to be, if we could, we'll just dial it back to the very beginning here. So when Kevin was initially coming up for the movie, and he wanted a big lead to be able to help carry it, and he was a big fan of Seth from, at that point when Kevin was writing this, 40-Year-Old Virgin had just come out, and Seth only has a supporting role in that film. He's not the lead. Knocked Up hadn't hit yet, but Kevin saw that and was so taken aback by, just the force that Seth Rogen is, that he wanted to do this movie.
Yeah.
When he starts writing this movie, he's thinking, I'm going to write this guy a leading man, a leading role. He's going to be,
no one will ever see that coming.
Yeah. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, he's driving down Sunset Boulevard, sees a billboard for Knocked Up. He's like, first. But just this, it's crazy how, and then when that happened, when it turned out that Seth was actually a big fan of Kevin's work and had even personally told Kevin, when Kevin
That's not surprising in the least.
Yeah. Yeah. He said the whole reason that I even got into this business was because I saw a movie called Clerks. So it's wow, just, and it's true. It really, they do fit. I mean, the Apatow movies are actually, in a way, very similar to the Kevin movies. It's a lot of, just people just talking and saying some funny stuff. I mean, yeah, they're a bit more raunchy in terms of the physicality and a lot of sex stuff, but I mean, Superbad, for example, that's mostly just, a lot of its best moments just come from the dialogue, much like a Kevin Smith movie. So it's really, it's Kevin saw this as an opportunity to be like, wow, Apatow's making, $100 million with his movies. They're just like mine. If I can get Seth Rogen in this and bring his audience to my shit.
And actually, it should have worked. That's the thing. It should have. People should be talking about this the same way they talk about Knocked Up or 40-Year-Old Virgin or things like that, because all the elements are there. The fact that it's not is almost baffling. Yeah,
and it is baffling. But I mean, it's like we've mentioned on previous episodes when we brought up Zack and Miri, it's just the marketing campaign, which it had a good marketing campaign. It's just a lot of networks, a lot of outlets. They didn't feel comfortable putting the word porno in the title, which today I'm sure this movie could. Today this movie.
Would, yeah. I mean, it's not even all that old.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe not even at the box office, but on Netflix, I mean, this would be this would get at least like a 5-6 year deal streaming on Netflix, and it actually is currently streaming on Netflix for anyone that wants to check it out. But
right. But I mean, it's crazy though, because when you think about it, I mean, with what we're talking about, like Apatow followed, he was not a protege, but he followed Kevin Smith's lead, and one is responsible for the other. And when he tries it, Kevin Smith was the one that almost took it, like he found out where the line was. 40-Year-Old Virgin, as crass and as lewd as it can sometimes be, that almost set the standard. Apparently, Zack and Miri, that's where the line is. That's a bridge too far. A porno is that one step people aren't willing to take.
Yeah, and I mean, it's it's crazy to think that, it really wasn't that long ago. I mean, the movie just passed it. Well, actually, now it's about 12 years old, so it's really, it's really not even that old, and it's, now it seems like, no one would really care if it has that word in the title or what the subject matter is, but it's crazy to think, like, just a little over 10 years ago, how much more conservative we were as a culture then, as opposed to now.
We've come a long way in a short amount of time.
Yeah. But to go back to the very beginning here, where did this idea come from? What first planted the seed in Kevin's head to be able to, come up with an idea that was at the time a little controversial in the movie industry?
I don't know. It feels like it'd be a natural progression for him. Something that would just kind of happen. And, if you're coming up with new ideas, trying to get out of your comfort zone, like we constantly talk about, that's one of his defining qualities is he's trying to get out of his comfort zone and try something new. This seems like a perfect fit.
Yeah, it totally does. And it's, he had actually written, he actually had sort of this idea floating around in his head since the days of Chasing Amy. But around that time, he had actually written a script for a movie that never got developed. It was called Name, and it was supposed to have the cast of Chasing Amy back for it, and it was kind of not really a sequel to Chasing Amy, but more of like a spiritual sequel, kind of like how. Kind of like Richard Linklater's Everybody Wants Some with Dazed and Confused. This was kind of like a sort of similar situations, but not really the same universe. But it was going to be based in the porn industry, and that's all what we really know about it. Kevin hasn't talked about it quite that much, but he said that he's had porn. He wanted to make a movie that sort of centered around that subject for a long time, and that movie wasn't going to necessarily be this movie. I think it was supposed to be more of a drama, but that was the first sort of thing that planted the seed. And then many years later, after the success of Clerks 2, he wanted to continue right off the coattails of that, make another raunchy comedy, but step it up a notch, make it get people talking. I mean, because if you put porno, the word porno in the title, I mean, that's
apparently that's enough. That's all it takes.
Yeah. So, and then of course,
because everybody knows Americans are deeply, offended and Puritans, and all it takes is the word porn to get them in a tizzy.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened when it was announced. I mean, I remember. I mean, I was only a teenager when this movie was being developed, but I remember when Kevin announced it on the old Askewed message boards, and they had put up a teaser poster almost right away of the movie, and you can look it up online. It's hilarious. The teaser poster for this movie is just 2 stick figure drawings of Seth Rogen and Elizabeth Banks, and it's like they look almost nothing like, because they're just stick figures, but it's those 2 with a little crudely drawn video camera, and it just has Zack and Miri Make a Porno coming soon.
Well, that's the thing, like there's nothing in any of the posters that really make it offensive in the slightest.
No, not really. There's another poster I saw recently with it's hilarious. It's just Seth Rogen and it's Rogen and Banks kind of sitting in this really colorful meadow, and there's like bunnies skipping along beside them, and it just and it's I think the tagline is something along, here's a poster for those that find our title hard to swallow.
Yep, that's literally it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm looking at that poster right now, and there's a bunny in sunglasses, and the two of them in a field, and that's it. The sun is actually smiling. It might as well be a kid's film. It's great.
Yeah, it's crazy. And there's just the marketing for this movie. They had all those like really clever ways to try to sell it, but I mean, just I guess just because of how it all ended up working out, a lot of theaters didn't want to display the posters. A lot of networks didn't want to air the TV spots, before 10 p.m. I think it was, and it just, that unfortunately that's what ended up hurting it. But it's a really wonderful movie. So
thing is, and another poster I just discovered, they actually lean into it. It's like almost a Grindhouse film poster that's film released. It's Discover, a whole new world of exciting sensual pleasure. Now the most important film ever made on sex relations. See it together. Zack and Miri with the surprise ending you will see coming. It's just, it's like, you're going to badmouth it? We'll make it worse.
Yep. Basically, Kevin's the champion of doing that, making quips about himself and about his movie. But I also wanted to touch on, while we're here, the plot of this movie. It's Kevin. This is another example of Kevin really putting his stamp on something. Is that he took his own story of how the making of Clerks came to be. In a sense, he took that basic structure of, like all these two friends, they sort of, they don't necessarily have a dream, but, they're broke. They want to be able to pay their bills, and they figure, hey, if we have sex on camera for money, all of our, high school classmates are going to want to buy this. There's a lot of other people that, will think this is cool. Maybe we could, raise some money to be able to pay our rent. And you know what? I mean, that's kind of sort of the story of Clerks, but just with, boobies and dicks in it.
I mean, there's definitely a lot of elements in it. You can see it, and we've talked about this when we talked about Clerks, that, he would work there during the day, and then after hours, he'd film the store at night, and that's exactly what happens in the movie. And he brings together his friends from the area, and it does feel a lot like a making of Clerks, which should be interesting when we go into Clerks 3, which has a lot of the same elements.
That's true. Yeah, Kevin has said that for Clerks 3, he's going to have it be Dante and Randall essentially make their own movie about life at the store. So they're essentially making Clerks. So it's going to be, the second time that he's revisited that sort of plot point. But I mean, I'm all for it. I mean, I think it's great that he keeps going back to that personally. I mean, that's, what got him to, that was the first step into, the large world that he's in and that that we're all in today. So, it's cool that he keeps going back to the well. But I also wanted to talk about, this film was shot and set in Monroeville, Pennsylvania, which is a suburb of Pittsburgh. And a lot of that whole area, I grew up on the East Coast, about 2 hours away from there. So I'm very familiar with the entire area. But that whole area there is the set of where George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, that whole series of movies, the birth of the zombie was actually in that area. And there's a lot of, throughout this movie, even though it's a comedy, a lot of homages are there, or homage, if you will, to those movies.
If you're artsy about it, fine.
Yeah. Throughout this movie, you can see just little things here and there, not necessarily horror elements, but just references to those movies. Like they have, there's a scene in the Monroeville Mall where Dawn of the Dead takes place and was shot. There's the hockey team that Seth's character Zach plays on is the Monroeville Zombies, which I think you can actually still buy the jerseys for on Kevin's website, which is awesome. There's even a Tom Savini cameo in the movie as the seedy landlord. He pops up for like a second.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. But let's talk about a much closer to home thing, though. You grew up right near here. I mean, I'm surprised you didn't just pop in. And you were a teenager, so you would have been old enough to possibly do that. And I'm pretty sure you were a Kev head by that time.
Oh yeah, I totally was big time. I think when did this came out in 2008. I was 15, 16, around there.
Okay. You get a pass for not being allowed to drive yet.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, just barely. Like I think I might have. Yeah, I don't even think I had a license or a car at that point. So
you were way too young.
Yeah. Unfortunately, But man, if only, because I actually have some friends that I had met on the set of Reboot that were involved with this movie, and that just from what I've heard from them, that was all a blast all the time. So, I wish I could have been there for that. But
well, I mean, Pittsburgh was such an interesting option for him because he's usually he's usually Jersey, and
usually,
it's Jersey or New York. When he's not in Jersey, he's usually in New York or somewhere along those lines. So Pittsburgh seems like a strange choice.
True, but I do want to point out, while it is not set in Pittsburgh, Dogma was actually filmed in Pittsburgh.
Really?
So that was actually,
okay.
Yes. So that was actually, and that's actually how the opening scene of Dogma with the nun, played by Betty Aberlin of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood fame, the scene between the nun and Matt Damon, how he's kind of coercing her into.
She was from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, really?
Yes, she is.
I didn't know that.
She played Lady Aberlin she's in like every single episode of that show. The 40 plus years that show was on the air.
Well, that just makes it even better.
And that's why it's so funny to see her pop up, and because she's not only like Red State and she's in a few of the movies, but yeah, it's funny how.
It's one of my favorite scenes, and you somehow find a way to make that better. That's awesome.
Yeah. But back to Zack and Miri. I think that may have had a bit to play in the world of ending up setting the movie there. I mean, I'm sure budget had a thing or two to do with it as well. But I mean, actually setting it. I mean, I know he wanted to set it somewhere cold. I think originally it was supposed to be set in like St. Louis or something, but he wanted it to be somewhere cold because, he wanted to emphasize, these people are broke. It's the dead ass middle of winter. They're shut off. Their electric shut off. So, but yeah, I think another part of that was, he had the experience in being working in Pittsburgh on Dogma, and he's always expressed great love for that town. They spent a lot of great times there, so I'm sure that played a little role in getting them back there. But,
well, I mean, it sort of plays on Kevin's love of the working class, and he constantly goes back to that.
Oh, always, yeah, and it's he always really goes back to just that. I mean, I think that really plays a lot into his growing up, because he always talks about how. He's like, growing up, we were poor, not necessarily poverty stricken, but, we were lower middle class. Like he always says that in like all of his Q&A sessions. And I'm just like, I personally even identify with that. I mean, I can tell you that I was definitely lower middle class. Right? So, growing up in West Virginia. So it really, this movie totally resonates with me on a lot of levels. And, I feel like it's tremendously underrated. It's one of my favorite Kevin films, one of my favorite films, period. It's just the comedy, even the love story behind it is, a lot of people argue that, it's kind of cliche and that the ending is kind of cliche. I disagree. I mean, it's like,
it earns it. It earns it.
It does. It's
so
like,
before we dive deeper into the plot and all of that, we're going to take a short break and then dive right in.
Yeah, we'll see you soon. And we are back with an Askewed view talking about Zack and Miri Make a Porno. So to talk about the plot of this movie, how it's, these two lifelong best friends, Zack and Miri, Seth Rogen and Elizabeth, played by Seth Rogen and Elizabeth Banks, are just two roommates, platonic roommates. They each sleep in their own beds. They've never once thought about having any kind of romantic interest in each other, despite their friends always badgering them for it. They both live in Monroeville, a suburb of Pittsburgh, where it's the dead middle of winter, the day before Thanksgiving. That's right, kids. Zack and Miri is a Thanksgiving movie. An automobile. So they're really behind on their bills. Their heat and water is about to get shut off. They both work very essentially minimum wage jobs in a big city. Zach works at this local coffee shop. Miri works in the mall. The neighbors it, and it's there's really not much money coming in, and they're just they're kind of struggling to make it. And they decide after attending their high school reunion and seeing just realizing how many people are in their graduating class and seeing how successful everyone else is and feeling kind of down, they decide, or Zach decides rather, hey, we can make a porno movie after. Oh, and also to bring this up, Zach also meets at that high school reunion. He meets gay porn star from Los Angeles, played by Justin Long, which is honestly this is my favorite Justin Long performance.
It's only 5 minutes,
movie.
But it's classic. Yeah, it's amazing. It's like it's one of the scenes I remember most about the movie, and he's barely in it.
Yeah, and I want a full-length movie of that character as the lead. I want it so bad. Him and Brandon Routh need to do it, but when Zach meets Justin's character, Brandon St. Randy, for the first time, and he's just going into very, very graphic detail of what his job entails, and it just it opens Zach's eyes to be able to say, hey, we could do this and get this at least these 200 people in our graduating class will buy it, and that'll be enough to cover our bills. It doesn't have to go nationwide or worldwide. We don't care, but I mean, this will be enough to pay our bills, and then
that exchange between the two of them is just so fucking on point too. It's like I don't know if you're my demographic. What's your demographic? He's like, pussy? Yeah, then you're not my demographic.
Yeah. And it's just his voice even is just, I mean, how he lowers his register so much. And that wasn't even, the funny thing is that wasn't even intentional. He Justin had a cold the day that he was there. So, that was just him speaking naturally, but it worked so perfectly.
And even him so playing against Brandon Routh, which, again, at the time, no one really knew the comedic potential of Brandon Routh. He was still Superman at that time.
Yeah, just finished Superman, just came out. That's why I was shocked when they announced he was in this movie. I mean, he's only in it for a minute as well, but it's like, this is Superman in this comedic movie playing a gay porn star's lover.
Which I think this may have been like his almost casting for Legends of Tomorrow, because he's both a superhero and really funny in Legends of Tomorrow.
Oh yeah. I still haven't. I have seen him play Ray Palmer on The Flash, but I still haven't gotten to watch Legends yet. But from what you've told me and what from everyone tells me, he still carries just all of this amazing comedic ability over to those shows as well. And it's like,
I mean,
you wonder why.
It's a bonkers TV show, and part of that is because he lets himself be bonkers. When he's Superman, there's no sense of humor, no nothing. He's stoic and all that. But when he lets himself go and lets himself get in on the kind of comedy that Kevin's writing and stuff like this, it just completely works. He has a ton of range.
Definitely, and it's it's kind of a wonder that he hasn't really explored more into the comedy universe. I mean, unless there was something I missed, but I mean, I feel like that's where he could really shine the most. I mean, he's excellent in the superhero world, but I mean, just he has this versatility where I feel like he could totally balance the.
Well, it's almost ironic. It's like a Chris Hemsworth. You see him as Thor, but put him in a comedy, and he's great too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and he's even in Jay and Silent Bob reboot on Amazon Prime.
There we go. Yeah, another one that's going full circle.
So Kevin, it's funny. It really pays to be, especially at this day and age, it pays to be a fan, because a fan of comic book movies, and he gets these comic book movie actors in his movies. Amazing.
But all right, so let's talk about the rest of the cast, because Brandon Routh is amazing, but he's only in there for 5 minutes. So let's talk about the rest. I mean, Jeff Anderson is in there not playing someone from Clerks. And
yes, I'm glad you brought that up.
Really, they able to change him enough It's definitely not Randall. Like, it's clearly not Randall.
Yeah, and that's actually, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I wanted to talk about that, how this movie is really, Jeff Anderson hasn't really done a whole lot of acting outside of Randall, but this movie shows, you know, that he actually does have range. I mean, Jeff will always says in all of his interviews, you know, like, I'm not really an actor. It was never really my thing. I just did it for my buddy Kev, you know,
right.
That's pretty much what he's known for, is Randall. But this movie shows that the guy has range. I mean, he still is kind of, you know, the sarcastic asshole, but not on the same level as Randall. It's kind of a different
right.
sort of.
And there's a couple moments where you see him channeling Randall.
Yeah.
But that's rare.
Yeah, and there's even moments where towards the ending when that scene with him and Craig and Seth in the basement, like, just, you know, the emotional weight of that scene is, you know, more or less, you know, like, it's more or less kind of Craig's moment and the big reveal to Seth, you know, like, oh, this girl loves you, but you know, his role Deacon plays, you know, a really big part in that. Jeff does, you know, in convincing Seth, you know, like, hey, you know, this, you know, we all came together before this, you know, we were all, you know, just nobodies, and now, you know, we're all together, we're tight, we're friends, we made this awesome thing together, and, you know, it's not out there in the world, but you can make this right if you go after the girl, you know. So it's really, you know, it's just a really sweet,
it's heartwarming. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And like we talked about before, it's very earned, because the level of acting that both Rogen and Banks bring, especially during their big love scene, you feel it. You do. The fact that they took this thing of porn, and I guess spoilers, the one point where they actually do film the porn of Zack and Miri, it's not really a porn. It's not. It's a romance sex scene.
It is. It's a total romantic sex scene, and they do it without, you know, really. You know, it really captures these two, and they even say this in the movie. There's a line to the effect of this, where, you know, Seth says, you know, that night we were trying to fuck on camera, but instead we ended up making love, and it's like, it really captures that. And I mean, also with the music that's playing over that scene, that song, "Hold Me Up" by the band Live, that song actually there's a bit of interesting history to this scene. That I wanted to talk about. Kevin had wanted that song for Mallrats initially, and the band had ended up turning him down because they had planned on releasing that. It hadn't been released yet, and they had planned on releasing it as a single on their upcoming album, which ended up not happening. So years later, when Kevin's doing Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, he wanted to include that song somewhere in the soundtrack, and again, they turned him down. But then finally, when they come to this movie, the song had still been unreleased. After 13 years, the song's just sitting in some vault somewhere. I don't know how Kevin heard it in the first place, but you know, it's just sitting in some vault somewhere, and he ends up submitting this movie for approval. And I guess they liked it enough, or liked the scene enough, that they, you know, they allowed him to include it. And this movie was like the first release of this 13-year-old song, which is amazing, and it really complements the scene so well. So I always loved the story of that. I thought it was so cool.
Yeah, there's so many elements that he puts in there that really, I mean, it makes it his own.
100%. And there was so much love and so much put into this movie. I mean, both on set and off set. I know you can see some of this in the documentary on the Blu-ray. There's during the production of this movie, since there's a lot of comedians in this movie, Seth has done stand-up here and there, more or less, though, to kind of prepare for his movies. Like when he was in that movie Funny People, he did stand-up for a bit.
Right, he didn't seem like a normal stand-up comedian. Like that's his go-to.
Yeah, but the reason I bring that up is because during the production of this movie, there were times where Craig Robinson is a very well-known stand-up musician, and he was doing some live show in Pittsburgh while they were filming this movie, and he ended up bringing along Seth and Ricky Maybe along with them, who is also hilarious in this movie. I want to know what happened to him. He's hilarious. He brought him.
I don't know. I'm more fascinated by Bubbles.
Oh yeah,
fucking love Bubbles. She didn't get nearly enough screen time.
Yeah, that's someone else. We should bring up as well. Tracy Lord is a very well noted. Not maybe not so much these days, but back in the day, she's very famous porn star back in the day. Same with Katie Morgan, who plays Stacy in the movie. She was at that time was actually working in the porn industry, and Kevin wanted to have actual porn actors in the movie.
Well, you gotta give him point for authenticity.
Yeah, he had to fight with Harvey Weinstein to cast her, but apparently Harvey didn't want any porn actors in the movie. But Kevin was like, no, this is a movie that honors porn. We need to have at least a few, and they ended up getting her. And I thought she did great. She's really funny. Especially.
Oh yeah, and she seems like a regular. She can hold her own among everybody else. She's actually a decent actor.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that whole bit with the scene with her and Muse when they're talking on the counter, the swallow my cappuccino. Let us fuck. That whole scene is just ridiculous. Pouring the coffee beans on them while they're going at it on the counter. But and also we can't forget no, I don't know if I should spoil this for people who haven't seen it, but there's another scene that involves Jeff Anderson's character with those two.
Oh, yeah, that's one of my favorite. Yeah. She frosted me like a cake.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the scene that they talk about it in the documentary. That is the scene that the MPAA would not. This was an NC-17 movie, and they would not budge on it at all. They were like, "No, you have to take this out." And
come on, they didn't actually show anything.
Yeah, no, that was when I was watching this recently, the documentary, because I completely forgotten, but. Kevin tells the story of how, he made the argument of, in Jackass, the movie, a guy literally shits on camera. It's actual shit coming out of his body, and you see it on camera. But with this movie, it's a fake poop cannon that shoots in Jeff's face, and you want to give this an NC-17, but Jackass gets an R? What the hell? So eventually they ended up getting it overturned, thankfully, but it's crazy how that, just not even all the sex stuff. I mean, you would have thought, but no, just the poop scene in his face is for some reason warrants an NC-17 rating.
Okay, so this is more of a retrospective than anything. So let's ask the obvious question: does it hold up? And we looked at Cop Out fairly recently, and came to the conclusion that doesn't hold up at all. So this, I gotta give the opposite grade on this one. This one feels like it could have been made today, and I'd be fine with that.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. This one holds up definitely. Probably out of all of Kevin's movies, this one definitely is in the top 3 in terms of holding up today. That it was made.
Oh yeah.
So many years ago, and now it's. Absolutely still relevant today. And I mean, you can watch there's even a lot of people that I know today that they're just like, oh, I just saw this movie, Zack and Miri Make, Porno. I was like, yes, I was there when it came out, man. But, and it's, there's really enough of the pop culture references in it, enough of the,
it's strangely not heavy on pop culture references, and the ones that they are almost so old, like Star Wars. Everybody knows Star Wars. That's not going to be like, oh, hey, it was 1989. Clearly, it's old.
Yeah, and there's references to that. And I mean, even when they're coming up with fake porn titles, I mean, a few of them are for diehard cinephiles out there, but some of them are really, really universal. Apocalypse Now and your with penis hands. And,
the final one they come up with, Revenge of the Shits, the all anal,
the all anal final chapter. Which
maybe if we have time.
And if you stick around for the for the credits. In the middle of the credits, there's a scene where we see that they actually did make the Star Wars. Oh man, just everything about this movie, man. I mean, I love it. I mean, it's even some. It doesn't get a lot of criticism. A lot of people that really do like this movie will make it vocal that they really do like this movie. I mean, it's when they can actually find it. It's a shame that it's not as talked about as much as it should be. I mean, considering all the talent that's involved, and a lot of people that I know that have seen it always just assume that it's just another Apatow movie because of Rogen and Robinson and Banks and everybody. But I'm like, no, that was actually Kevin Smith. Yeah. So.
I mean, in rewatching it, I was amazed at how quotable it is. And like one after another, like 15, 20 minutes in, and I already have a bunch of things I'm going to start quoting again.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, you better shut your mouth or I'm going to fuck it is like an everyday.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I say that at least once a day.
Yes. But, it's so many lines. I mean, a lot of those lines come from, Justin Long. There's so many other, it's very quotable, very, just very heartfelt, very funny in every sense, just one right after the other. Oh, this is another, the little icing on the cake. This is the first time we've ever seen Muse full frontal nudity. Which
I mean, if that's a milestone for you, I'm happy for you. I wasn't really marking it down on my calendar. I was going to say it was, Muse not playing Jay, but if you want to talk about, his ass or whatever, we can do that too.
Well, actually, not more about his cock, but his ass in every movie. But Muse in this movie also displays a bit of range. I mean, because he's playing another idiot, but I mean, he's not playing Jay. Like he's playing this kind of. This character.
His introduction, it's fantastic. So what's your name? Like Lester the Molester. Oh, great! You already have a porn name. We get to choose porn names.
Porn names? Yeah, exactly. They're like, okay. Lester the Molester, cock and stuff. But just everything about this movie, man, just from the cast to the script to the soundtrack even. I mean, not even the song by Live that's in there, but just everything. I love the when they walk into the high school reunion, we hear Len, which we haven't heard since
I love that song.
Yeah, when they walk in, I was lying on the ground, and it's just, it takes you back to.
Oh yeah. Let me clear my throat. Yeah. Isn't there? It's all it's really good soundtrack.
And Up in Here is in there during the rap.
Yeah.
All about me.
Oh, and actually, that's Kevin's wife makes an appearance in there, right at the class reunion.
Yeah, she's like the class president or whatever. Yeah, she's in there for just a little bit. It's awesome. There's actually there's a few fun little cameos like scattered throughout that scene.
Actually, the only one I didn't see, which is a regular at this point, well, by that point, was Harley. I'm surprised she didn't show up.
Actually, I was kind of, she was young when this movie came out. I want to say she might have been maybe 12 or 13, but when this movie happened, I went through just recently and went back and watched all the deleted scenes. There's a deleted scene with her in it.
Of course there is.
Yeah, and she doesn't speak or anything, but she's like one of the she's like with like her mom, with her parents at the coffee shop that you see her. Zach makes some kind of, I forget exactly what he said. I wish I remembered, but he says something that's really funny and vulgar, and she laughs at it. So it's like, oh, that's Harley.
Well, this might be the end. Well, not end, but from here, everything kind of switches gears, and we've got a lot more to talk about in coming weeks regarding that.
Totally. Oh, absolutely. This may have been the end of the era for Kevin at the Weinstein Company, which, now we know is a very good thing.
Right. Yes, it was the right move to make. But
this is the beginning of a whole new era of Kevin delving into very unknown territory with after this came Red State. This is which is a very, very different kind of movie. So, here in the coming weeks, we'll be visiting all those that Kevin's dipping his toes into horror with Red State and Tusk, and even more absurd with Yoga Hoser. So, we're going to tackle all these movies, and it's going to be great. I can't wait until we get into these.
We look forward to having you there and joining us. So, thanks for listening, and we look forward to having you next week.
This has been our Askewed View. And that was this week's Askewed View podcast. If you like what you hear, please remember to subscribe and like on all of our platforms, wherever you listen to podcasts.